and welcome to another episode of the MLS UK show. I'm Henry Hewitt, and once again I'm joined by...
Elliot Holman, hi.
It's the playoffs, MLS playoffs. Some say it's the most magical time of the year. Not if your side is facing Inter Miami, it's not. Elliot, are you excited for the playoffs? We're going to get more into it in a moment. We'll talk about Decision Day and the wildcard games, but on the whole, are you excited for the playoffs this year?
I'm really excited for the playoffs, and I'm going to say that I was maybe more excited than I ever have been. Then I saw the bracket, so...
Yeah.
I'll see you next year, really, I suppose.
For us who support Eastern sides, it's, I think it's going to be a short playoffs. But let's look back at Decision Day then. And, it was a hell of a day, wasn't it? What a day full of drama. East and West split up, and neither conference disappointed. I guess we're going to start in the East because it was first. And I guess we should start with the shock of Decision Day, which was somehow Atlanta United made it into the wildcard game by beating Orlando. Listen, I'm not here to gloat, but last week, just to emphasize how little faith I had in Atlanta, I think I said they've got a 0 chance. They somehow managed to scrape through. Taking aside that it was Orlando that they beat, how surprised were you that it ended that way?
I think we're always pretty level-headed when it comes to these things in MLS, because more so in MLS than probably most leagues in the world, with the A-League in Australia, except put to the side. I think anyone can beat anyone on the day, and that happens a lot. Atlanta beating Orlando, even 2 years ago wasn't a huge headline. I think Orlando were just the informed team in the whole league, so you felt like that was the one they wanted just to complete their run into the playoffs, keep their momentum. And Atlanta, they were a considerable way down the standings, but they got their result and they got into the playoffs and promptly beat Montreal as well. It all happened so fast, doesn't it? Like, they're in and it's happening, and congratulations to them. Like you say, though, it's going to be nigh on impossible for any Eastern team to do anything in these playoffs when Miami are in town and they have not just Messi, because that's a really easy thing to say on a podcast. Oh, well, Messi's going to help Miami win the playoffs. But the form he is in, coming on as sub to just demolish teams, tear them apart. Savage. Absolutely savage.
Yeah, well, we're going to do our playoff brackets later on in the show, and maybe there's a bit of a tease as to who we think is going to go on and win MLS Cup. Let's talk about Miami then. They broke the points record in the end. It was a bit nervy, actually, to say that, again, last week I suggested that it would be over within 20 minutes. It was quite the opposite, and New England Revolution were 2-0 up after 20 minutes. But then again, even when they brought Messi on, who is a bit of a cheat code, let's face it, they had pulled it back at that point. They had got back to 2-2, but it's well-deserved, isn't it? Take everything out of it. Take that actual game out of it. Miami breaking the record, supporter shield. Fair play to them.
Yeah, been phenomenal. Absolutely phenomenal. And let's not forget the turnaround. If you want to see a perfect example of MLS and how you never really know what a season is going to look like from 1 year to the next, take a look at last season, take a look at this season. Miami under Phil Neville, who we will come on to, God, literally, we're just a completely different team. Completely different. And it isn't just Messi. Messi's a huge percentage, but it isn't just Messi. They've turned it around. They've got a winning mentality. And that's something that they lacked the entire time that they'd been in the league so far. New England Revolution, on the other hand, it was their points total that Miami were trying to beat. And that's for a reason. They were unplayable a few years ago. Absolutely unplayable.
They are playable now, though, and that's why it ended 6-2. It was interesting, actually. I was watching David Beckham's interview on Rio Ferdinand's YouTube channel, and he asked him about firing Phil Neville and what it was like to have to fire your mate. And it was very diplomatic about it. Said results weren't, as they should have been. But let's face it, we all knew that Tata Martino, I should say, is far better at being Lionel Messi's head coach than Phil Neville would have been, and that's why it's turned around. But once, as you said, we'll talk about Phil Neville when we get to the wildcard games. Sticking in the East then, another thing I kind of predicted last last week, and I'm not just going to go and say I predicted everything because we'll get to the West in a moment. But DC capitulated, which made sure that Atlanta got into the playoffs. 3-0 defeat at home to Charlotte. Listen, Charlotte are a good team, but we called DC Benteke AFC last week, and when he's not being fed some chances, DC struggled, and it showed last week.
Pains me to say it, but you called it. You absolutely called it. Nailed it. It was difficult. I think when we were looking at who was going to make it into the playoffs, and especially in the West as well, I think it was a tough call. And there was a lot of maths that needed to be done, and Atlanta were outsiders. DC, I didn't expect to quite capitulate as much as they did. So yeah, fair play to you, because maybe MLS is predictable after all.
Maybe. I was saying that. I think that was the only thing I predicted right last week. So DC were out. For me, again, a mentality issue with DC. They've got Benteke, and he's great, and hopefully we can keep on to him, but they need to add some extra pieces around him if they're going to be challenging for playoffs next season. Philly missed out, which is surprising for them, but I think Cincinnati's second goal, where it kind of was a bit of a mess at the back, I think that kind of sums up Philly's season this season. It's just not quite got clicking for them, has it?
No, playoffs without Philly is a strange time when you're me and Henry, and you've watched MLS for the last 6-7 years. But ultimately, like we were saying, I don't want to spoil the bracket too much, but you make the playoffs in the East, and you got to play Miami at some point.
That's true. Yeah, Columbus, they got through in the end 3-2. They scored a late goal that meant that if they do manage to beat Miami, or if anyone manages to beat Miami, they will host MLS Cup, which is a big thing, although they are relying on Miami losing to someone. So maybe when it goes to single-legged games, we should be looking at maybe someone shocking Miami. But yeah, Columbus will be happy finishing second. And in this, we always say about MLS, it's very difficult to have back-to-back good seasons. There's so many occasions where a team will win Supporter Shield, or they'll win MLS Cup, and then they'll sort of fall away the season after. Listen, Columbus finishing second this year is actually a hell of an achievement, isn't it?
It really is. And I was just, Miami will take the headlines, and we'll talk more about the bracket shortly. But, also having Columbus in there, the East is stronger than the West at the minute. And, the strangest thing would be Miami lose, and you over 3 legs as well. It's so unlikely that, and you get excited, and then, well, it just means you're probably going to face Columbus instead. So it really is such a strong conference. I'm looking at Cincinnati thinking, well, do they stand a chance? New York City FC. And that feels bizarre because they're all really good teams. Orlando, I hope they do well. They're in incredible form apart from the decision day, but do they really stand a Columbus, incredible side, Miami, incredible side. It's going to be so tough.
Well, before we break down our bracket predictions, let's just move over to the West and discuss what happened there on decision day. And there's really only one place to go, and that is the LAFC managed to pip LA Galaxy to top spot. And this was full of drama within the last 5 minutes anyway. LAFC were on course to do it. Houston were winning 1-0. LA Galaxy equalised late on, which meant they would have finished top. And then Houston went up the other end and scored. And then there were scenes on the pitch at LAFC. I said LA Galaxy would be fine last week. I said we should have more faith in them. And they played Houston. And yet again, Houston have managed to cause LA Galaxy to have tears on decision day.
It's bizarre, isn't it? It's just like it's written in the stars. Who saw LA Galaxy? Oh, the stars wasn't an intentional pun. Who saw LA Galaxy, messing it all up on decision day? Just so unlike them. We said it was 50-50. I think because LAFC had the easier game, but they had to get the points. And the fact that Houston obviously are a good side, but faced Galaxy, who were kind of in the driving seat. It was a fairly even situation for the LA sides, but Galaxy are they ever just going to get across the line anymore?
Yeah, no matter what they're trying to do, I know Galaxy fans would argue that at least it's not to get a playoff spot this time. It is further up the league. But whatever Galaxy do, if Galaxy got to MLS Cup, it wouldn't surprise me if, I don't know, Inter Miami subbed on Houston Dynamo just in the last 10 minutes, just to make sure that Galaxy don't achieve what they want to achieve. But yeah, so LAFC, that means that they will get all the home games throughout the Western side of the playoffs. But before we go through our bracket, there's been some matches this weekend. This week, I should say. On Tuesday evening, Atlanta went and again somehow managed to get through against Montreal in Montreal. Josef Martinez and Brad Guzan. There's a great picture of them after the game. Guzan consoling Josef Martinez. But Atlanta went 2-0 up in this one. Again, they went 2-0 up against Orlando. So they're having fast starts. They're really taking it to teams. Montreal got it back, but then Atlanta won on penalties. Were you surprised that Atlanta went through? Because, I mean, I know I'm an Atlanta fan, but I sure was.
No, I wasn't surprised. I wasn't surprised to see them get an early lead. If they do that against Miami, it's going to be interesting because Miami will have to come out. And potentially earlier than they normally do, show up to the party a little late sometimes, don't they? No, I wasn't surprised. And if they hadn't drawn Miami, hey, look, and yeah, that's what you get for stealing that bottom place, I guess. If they hadn't drawn Miami, I'd kind of fancy them a little bit to put a run together, but they're not being Miami. It's not happening.
Yeah, exactly. So it's nice while it lasts, but put it this way: if Atlanta get to a third game against Miami, I'll be celebrating. They can lose 8-0 after that. I'd just be happy that they got to that third game. Over in the West End, now this was the story of the week. Phil Neville's Portland 0, Vancouver 5. Now this was meant to be in Vancouver, although they had a motocross on, so it got changed to Portland. Phil Neville then said that this must mean that God is a Timbers fan. I don't think he was saying that come Wednesday night. 5-0 Elliot. I mean, if you don't think that Atlanta getting past Montreal was a shock, were you shocked by, no, maybe not Vancouver winning, but the way they won? By how much?
The win isn't a shock, but yeah, 5-0. This was on, you watched a little bit of this, didn't you? I saw that you were tweeting.
It coincided with my son waking up in the middle of the night. Yeah, so when I went and checked the score, and when at that point I think it was 4-0, I was like, oh, I'm watching the rest of this.
It's interesting you called it in the middle of the night. I'd actually already got to work. I got to work and I was like, what time's this game on? I was like, have I missed it? Like, what time is this game on? And it was then kicking off. And I was like, that's so late. So I'm literally at work on the Thursday morning and the Wednesday night game is just kicking off. So yeah, I literally started work and they were like 10 minutes in. Crazy. But what a game. And sorry, but how proud are we? MLS UK. Ryan Gold. 3 goals, an assist, and not being funny, but that goal, the chest and the volley, I'm sorry. That is exactly the kind of goal I concede to some 12-year-old kid on FIFA when I play online. Like, it's just men against boys, but like the other way around. They tear me apart. It was classic. There was no one near him. The marking was awful. They were all drawn to the ball like a Sunday league game. And he just chested it down and the composure. Oh, it's beautiful. I'm a little bit gutted the keeper got a touch on it because that would have just been chef's kiss. But what a guy. What a guy.
Yeah, well, if God isn't a Canadian, he's definitely a Scotsman after this weekend. After this week, I should say. But yeah, Ryan Gold, hat-trick, an assist as well. Not many players have done that within the playoffs. So yeah, well done to him. And he's been a good player for Vancouver. I know he's well liked over there, but I think this was the game for me that really showed what Ryan Gold can do. I'll be honest with you. Before he joined Vancouver, I hadn't seen much of him, but I knew what he had. What he was capable of. And he's shown it in that game. Incredible game, 5-0. Vancouver, well done to them. We'll talk about their chances in the playoffs in a moment. But Portland Timbers then with Phil Neville. Phil Neville came out after the game and he's basically said there's a few of the players that quit on them, quit on the teammates. He's glad he's found this out now rather than in a couple of years' time. Could you see a big overhaul at Portland? Not necessarily with Phil Neville, but with the players this close season now.
He's not going to be there in a couple of years' time, whether he finds things out or not. Look, just basically, we could just roll the clips, couldn't we? We said it wouldn't work. Then he joined, and we were like, yeah, see, it's not working. They scraped playoffs, and they've got thumped 5-0. It's inexcusable. At home, 5-0 at home in the playoffs. Middle of the season, midweek, when you're rotating, different story. You take the hits. You're losing 3 points regardless of whether it's 10-0, 5-0, 15-0. But that is inexcusable. The fans can't be happy with that. Imagine what the players' chat is saying after that. How do you even come back from that? It's not like you're back in training tomorrow. That's a long time until MLS starts again. Phil Neville's not the answer. You've shown it at Miami and he's shown it at Portland.
Yeah, I think if it was a side that were, playing a half-empty stadium or the fan base isn't as engaged as the Portland Timbers Army is, then, that wouldn't be as much of a surprise. But to go to Providence Park and win 5-0 is an incredible result. And, yeah, I think Portland, the players, the head coach, everyone at that club, and I know it's been a tough sort of 18 months, 2 years for everyone at Portland. But they need to have a long, hard look at themselves because, Portland have got Evander, who's being talked about as a potential MVP in some people's eyes, yet they're finishing quite low down in the table for someone who has, for a team who has his quality. And yeah, it's just not. I just don't think they've got going. They can score goals, but they also concede goals. It's been here and there, and again, you mentioned before about Philly with Portland, and I know they've had a few sort of mid-table seasons, especially recently, but we associate Portland on the MLS UK show as one of the better teams in the West. They're one of the most attractive teams in the West. This year, they haven't shown it. So for me, I think give Phil Neville another, at least to start next season, see how we go, see if he's, he talks like he means business. He's going to have a big overhaul. Let's see what happens. Let's see who he brings in. Let's see the sort of style of play they want to do. Let's see him put his footprint on it. But, going into that second year of a 3-year contract, he has to start delivering of whatever way that is.
You think he definitely keeps his job?
Yeah, I think he does, yeah.
I don't know when's a good time to bring this up, but I'm going to presume now before we get into the bracket. Portland's kind of reminded me, because I think this player is quite suited to Portland. I was watching a game the other day, Premier League match, and I've got a player that I think is prime UK to MLS signing. And I reckon we're less than 2 years away from it happening. They play for Fulham, and they play on the wing. And they joined Fulham from Wolves, I believe. And they're absolutely rapid, and I think they'd cause absolute carnage in MLS.
Well, Portland famously have a gym in the stadium. So Amanda Traore, I should say, would suit there. Yeah, that's
Get
a good
Adama
shout.
Traore in MLS.
Oh, yeah. I mean, the pace would just alone.
The baby oil, the pace.
Yeah, well, who knows? It's definitely one. I tell you what, let's open it up. As we're heading to the close season now, anyone who's listening or watching on YouTube, comment on the video or get in touch on social media at MLS UK Show. Are there any players in the Premier League or in the UK or in Europe that you look at the moment, and maybe not now, but possibly in a few years, you think, if I had to put money on, they would be a prime MLS signing? Get in touch, let us know.
Give me, apart from Portland, give me a club that you think Traore would suit.
I mean, it's easy to say sort of the LA sides. I want to go a bit left field though, not LA, not Miami. Team with pace. I'm gonna go with Orlando.
I can see that. I'd be extremely happy with that. Do you know who he'd partner so well with?
Go on.
he probably won't be at Minnesota in a couple of years, but Pukki, because Pukki's movement in the box from a Traore bomb forward on a counter attack would be incredible. But yeah, let us know who do you want to see in MLS in a couple of years.
Elliot Holman, Henry Hewitt, MLS UK show.
Welcome back to the MLS UK show. Now it's time to do our playoff brackets, and we've just been saying during the break how I'm glad that first section was quite long actually, because we're probably going to end up in the same place and it's going to be pretty quick, this bracket. But let's start in the East then. So I guess we'll go through the matches and you can say who you think's going to win. First one, we've discussed these teams quite a lot, so we can brush over this because we know what the answer is going to be. Miami v Atlanta. Elliot, who's going through?
Miami.
Yep, same here. Right. Well, Orlando v Charlotte then. Orlando going into the playoffs on some good form, take away that Atlanta result. How confident are you against Charlotte?
Well, Dean Smith's out to get me in every aspect of my life. So there's every chance that he gets the result. But no, Orlando at home, they should absolutely get the job done. I don't think anyone on paper can really disagree with that. I don't think I'm being extremely biased, but I respect Charlotte. They've had a good season, to be fair.
Yeah, I agree with Charlotte having a good season. I am going to go for Charlotte just because I think it would be absolutely hilarious. I think it would be absolutely hilarious for Dean Smith's side to knock Orlando out, and I would love to see your head explode. I mean, yeah, to be fair with Orlando, take away the last few weeks, their home record isn't great, is it, over the course of the season?
Never is.
So, never is, but who knows what will happen. But I'm going to go Charlotte just to mix it up a bit. Cincy versus New York City FC.
Cincy with the home advantage, I think, pretty good at keeping the score down. I think that's going to be crucial. New York City can go wild sometimes. So I'm going to back Cincy, but I think this is tougher than it's probably tougher than the Orlando one to call for me.
Yeah, I can see that. Cincy's home record is actually not as good as what we'd think it was. But then again, New York City FC's got a worse away record than Atlanta, who I think won their 5th away game of the season. That's it, last weekend. But I think with like Acosta in there, I think Cincy have got more game winners. They've got more match winners in the side, and Acosta's one of them. And I think he'll, going off the fact that they've got 2 games at home with that crowd as well. I think Cincy will go through as well. So that leaves us with Columbus versus Red Bull New York, which is a rematch from Decision Day.
It's Columbus, isn't it? It's got to be Columbus. We take Miami out of the equation, and Columbus are the team to beat once again. Current MLS champions, of course. So easy one for me.
Yep, current MLS champions, current Leagues Cup champions, obviously doing the Champions League final as well. So they know how to get through knockout games. I think they'll do it again. I think there's normally a big shock in the first stage of a MLS Cup playoffs, but I don't think it's coming in Columbus. So I guess then with the East, we move to the semi-finals of the conference. Miami versus Charlotte.
Or Orlando.
Or Orlando.
Thanks, mate. Well, I'm going to say it's Miami versus Orlando. And Miami to get the better of the Lions, unfortunately.
Yeah, I think we've aligned back now.
We're back
so
on track.
Miami will, they'll beat Charlotte. Charlotte, good defensive record, but not against Messi. Although Charlotte did get a point, didn't they, at Miami a few weeks ago? So who knows? Right. I mean, this is we can chat a bit more about this one. It would be Columbus versus Cincinnati. If both them sides go through, as we're predicting, who will go through from that one?
Back Columbus, but this is a tasty game. I hope we get it, because I think that's a fantastic game to watch. Definitely one I want to be viewing. So I'll back Columbus in the bracket, but shout out to Cincy, because respect if you're making me really think about whether you can take on Columbus, and I think it'll be close.
Yeah, well, Cincy took 35 points away from home this year. Columbus, I want to see a Miami Columbus conference final, but after last year as well, and Columbus coming back from 2-0 down against Cincy, football works in mysterious ways. I'm going to go with Cincy cause an upset there and beat Columbus and then face Miami in the conference final at Miami. Are we both going for Miami?
Columbus.
Oh, okay. Well, in my side that has Cincy, I am going for Miami. But so explain that. Why do you think Columbus would beat Miami?
Probably more hope than anything else. But I think they're the only team that have got a little, Miami, this success is very newfound. I think Columbus are the only team in the bracket that have got recent success, experience in this current roster. Remember, the roster's changed so much. So that Cincy side that were incredible a couple of years ago, been some changes, not as strong, still a great side. But Columbus are the only team that could potentially, and it's wild that we call it an upset because they're literally the current MLS Cup champions, but that could cause an upset. So let's go for it. Let's make it interesting.
Right. Well, Miami is going to be Miami for me, Columbus for you in MLS Cup. Both sides will host no matter who we choose from the West. So let's move over to the West then. So it starts off with, well, we won't do it in order of who, when the teams are playing. We'll do it in an order I've got wrote down here. LAFC versus Vancouver.
Well, they played a couple of weeks ago, didn't they? And it's a last minute winner from LAFC, if I remember correctly. They're obvious. Vancouver come into this having just spanked Portland 5-0. It just throws it wide open. But it's hard. Sensible head on it. I just think you have to say LAFC. It's a bit boring. I'd love Vancouver to do well, but I think you've just got to go LAFC.
The thing is, Vancouver are good away from home, and I do think there's a shock coming somewhere within this first round of fixtures. And I would love for Vancouver to do it, but I do think LAFC will do it. Yeah, LAFC should go through, but I don't think. I think I'm going to say it's not going to be as clear cut as that. Cut to then LAFC 5, Vancouver 0, and I look silly because I think that happened last year in one of the matches. It might have. Did LAFC play Vancouver last year? Can't remember. Maybe. Anyway, let's move on to Seattle versus Houston then.
There's nothing to choose between these two. Really, really tight. Seattle just finished above them. They just got that home spot, and you just have to feel like that's what's probably going to make the difference. That they're the tight margins, aren't they? Seattle and Houston basically the same amount of wins. I just think home advantage, so I'll go Seattle.
Yeah, Schmetz has signed a new deal today with Seattle, which will keep him there for a 64th season in a row.
Good luck getting to 69.
Both are in really good form, actually. This is really tough to call. I'm going to go Seattle just because they've got the 2 games at home. But yeah, it would not surprise me if Houston went and won this one. RSL versus Minnesota.
That's tough, isn't it? And just you can see if you're watching online, you can see I'm just studying the conference standings, trying to pick out where those points for Salt Lake have come from. Only one more win than Minnesota this season, so they may have finished third. But Minnesota 3 places below in 6th, but 1 win is the difference. That's it's very tight. But again, Salt Lake taking that home advantage, I think, makes a massive difference. It's a really, really difficult place to go, as we know. So I'm going to go RSL, and it'll be nice to see them do well.
It would be, and they have a great record at home. Minnesota have an incredible record away from home. I think they've got form going into it. I think Yeboah's playing well. I like what Ramsey's done. I'm going Minnesota.
Another difference in opinion? Okay. Well, that'll be a big result for them. Fair play if they can do that.
LA Galaxy versus Colorado Rapids.
LA Galaxy. They wouldn't possibly let us down, would they? Do they ever?
Yes, they do.
Yeah, they no, I forgot. They do let us down. I forgot about that.
They like the fact that we say 5 stars only at the end.
Yeah.
So LA Galaxy are wanting to prolong that for as long as they can. Normally in this situation, I'd say LA Galaxy could go out. They could be a team that really now they just capitulate. They've lost the lead on the last game, last minute, and it just all goes pear-shaped. However, they're facing Colorado. I think have lost the last 4. They've conceded 3 goals in a few of them as well. So they're not playing well at the moment. So yeah, I got LA Galaxy as well. Right, so that means, let me work this out. So we both said LAFC.
LAFC versus Seattle.
And mine would be, LAFC versus Seattle. I'm going to go straight out LAFC. I'll win this one.
Yeah, agreed. LAFC, home advantage, good side. Western Conference champions, of course. Yeah, I'll go LAFC.
I think when you look at LAFC and the playoffs and the sort of knockout matches and the important matches they've had over the course of their MLS journey, which remember, for all that Miami are doing now, if you isolate LAFC, they've had an incredible 5-6 years in MLS. So yeah, I think home record will get them as far as it will. I think Seattle, good team, but they're in good form, but LAFC will be fine. Right, so then it becomes LA Galaxy versus RSL for you and Minnesota for me.
I would like, regardless of who it is, I would like LA Galaxy to get the job done so that we can kind of get them to try and recover from their decision day loss, giving up the silverware. Try and get them a little bit deeper in the playoffs, and of course potentially face LAFC. So I'm going to go Galaxy.
There's a side that's going to a sort of a mid-table side who are going to go quite far. There always is, and I think that's Minnesota this year. I think it's Minnesota. Minnesota beat LA Galaxy and go on to face LAFC in the conference final.
Hello, Henry from November. In the future, you're ridiculous. This is hilarious. Minnesota they're not going the distance. It's not happening.
I tell you what, when I'm right, he's getting clipped. He's going on TikTok, and you're getting everyone. Minnesota. You're getting Minnesota fans in your mentions.
No.
So this then leads us to the conference final in the West. So for me, it would be LAFC versus Minnesota. For you, LAFC versus LA Galaxy. Is that right?
Yeah, because I wouldn't deny the people the LA Derby in the playoffs, but you want to put Minnesota in the mix.
We've had loads of them. Minnesota's journey ends there. I'm going LAFC to win that one.
Part of me there's a fairy tale, isn't there? There's a fairy tale. There's a 6th star awaiting. Galaxy go all the way.
That then means for you, it's Columbus versus LA Galaxy. For me, it's Miami versus LAFC. Both great games. I think deep down, MLS would probably want my final over yours. I'm going to say LAFC, as we've seen, don't deal well with away MLS Cups. So I'm going to go that Miami will win MLS Cup for me. Shock horror. Let's go to you, who can talk more in depth about yours.
Yeah, Columbus are the team. If it's not going to be Miami, Columbus are the team. They're the team to beat. But part of me just thinks, dare to dream. What if we finish this podcast previewing MLS Cup, and that's the last time I ever say LA Galaxy style 5 stars only on your reviews of the podcast. Imagine, dare to dream. LA Galaxy all the way. Bring it home, baby. I won MLS Cup on FIFA with Alex Hunter in the journey, and they've been terrible ever since, actually. Maybe I cursed them. Let's do it. LA Galaxy.
Wow. Who'd have thought that? Let us know your brackets. Let us know what you think of ours at MLS UK Show on social media. Or you can comment if you're on YouTube. Yeah. So Miami are winning it for me, which is hardly the most controversial thing I'll ever say. Elliot thinks LA Galaxy will get that 6th star Incredible. Right, well, that's where we round off this episode. That's been our brackets. Send us yours. But also, if you have enjoyed the episode and you listen on your podcast provider, then leave us a rating. And Elliot, there is one rule and one rule only.
What's that? Oh, yeah. 5 stars only, LA Galaxy style, but not for much longer.
If you're watching on YouTube, please like the video, subscribe to the channel, and stick as many comments as you want in. Comment about your brackets. Comment like people have done on our YouTube shorts and our YouTube videos about how Elliot was wrong to say that Messi doesn't deserve MLS MVP. Comment saying he's wrong that LA Galaxy will win MLS Cup. Feel free. Right, we'll be back in the playoffs to talk about what's happening and preview the latter stages. But until then, I've been Henry Hewitt.
And I've been Elliot Holman.
See ya.